It is fitting on the 25th anniversary of the public launch of the End Conscription Campaign to reflect on its contribution to the struggle to end apartheid. It provides us with an opportunity to remember the campaign and its achievements.
We're quite thrilled and we're very proud as well to have our band back together, obviously, and to be here in support of the ECC.
I'm just thrilled to be here at this just amazing day, recalling South Africans at their best.
My name is Yuval Oron. I came here from Israel. I'm part of a group called Shministim. It means 12th grade in Hebrew.
Comrades and friends, the 1980s for the mass movement were glorious years.
I was the second chairperson of the ECC in Cape Town, but it goes back a little bit further than that.
I was a club player of note.
For my sins, I've been coordinating the wonderful group of volunteers that have put this event together.
I can't tell you what it means to see so many amazing faces with whom I travelled so long and such difficult paths in many ways.
Well, I joined the ECC when we launched it in the early 80s.
Because both my brother-in-law and my husband refused to go to the
I've been in the country since 1970 and I got involved in 1976.
I've been involved in the End Conscription Campaign, not centrally but peripherally for quite a while.
And then I was one of the 23 who initially came out and said we'd never go to the army.
I'm Janet Cherry, and I was a Marxist revolutionary, and I was the General Secretary of NUSAS at UCT. Well, I was at UCT, General Secretary of NUSAS in 1983.
I was a conscientious objector, and I was sentenced in late 1990 to a year in prison.
And I'm from Eritrea. I came to South Africa in 2001, and before I came to South Africa, I was conscripted in the army.
This is splendid. It's fantastic. But you know, the sad thing, I've been telling everybody I see for the last week, are you coming to the Spear? What's it about this house? It's the End Conscription Campaign. Oh, what was that?
What your involvement is with the ECC, that type of thing. You guys can go ahead.
What is ECC?
And I realize that it's time now for us to get our history out. People now need to hear it all over again. We've been too almost backward in celebrating this sort of thing.
This is Imani. We are here to celebrate her 4th month. She is our firstborn. We're loving her. And we thought we should come here because it's lovely.
I think we need to stand up now and say, this is what we did, and we're jolly well proud of it, and it was a fantastic movement, and we also had a lot of fun.
At the time, all white South African men were required by law to serve in the then South African Defence Force, SADF, for 2 years. Many of these young white conscripts fought in wars in Angola and Namibia and patrolled the streets of South African townships.
Yeah, perhaps just to talk a little bit about those very early days, 1977, 1978, Peter Marl, who's in fact my first cousin, refused a call-up in 1977 and was in court at Wynberg, and we all crowded around that little court while he was charged, and he was fined for not reporting for a camp.
Some brave white South Africans were even prepared to go to jail for up to 6 years rather than serve in the Defence Force.
I was ECT from 1976 to 79 and then refused to do my military service beginning in 1980.
Conscience objection is one of the most significant forms of resistance in the white community and for that whites can undertake. Because with any minority government anywhere in the world, and our government is not any different, it can only stay in power with strong military force.
This is a song we wrote for David Bruce. I'm not sure if he's here tonight. He's a very, very low-key guy. As far as I was concerned, or we were concerned, he was the first conscientious objector who went to jail rather than serve in the SADF. So we're here to salute him. We saluted him then, and we salute him now. This is the rising tide.
And if we withdraw our cooperation as white South Africans from the SADF, we in fact are weakening the whole apartheid system very significantly.
In the early 1980s, we were given a unique opportunity by circumstances to seize the moment and create a truly mass movement that will translate the general hatred of apartheid into action. And that was a tremendous task we faced.
I think I was probably one of the initiators of ECC right at the very, very beginning. Shortly after the Black Sash resolution in 1983 calling for an end to conscription, and around the campaign supporting Brett Myrtle, who was a conscientious objector, a small group of us met and felt that this resolution could be taken much further and that we needed to look at building a campaign against conscription. It was a whole move not away from, but a progress beyond just the support for individual conscientious objectors.
And the challenge was to mobilize a very wide and disparate group of people.
And we realized that there was scope to build a campaign opposed to military conscription.
From different racial backgrounds, different classes, different parts of the country, into one sharp edge.
It was at this time that members of the ECC mobilized, challenging the whites-only conscription laws and highlighting the role that the SADF was playing in defending the apartheid government.
And the public launch of ECC was in September 1984 at the Claremont Civic Centre, where we had a mass meeting and suddenly realized there was significant potential for this organization to grow and develop.
I was then in Cape Town at the first ECC meeting that we called, where Jonathan Shapiro drew the broken chain and we had our wonderful logo.
I did design the ECC logo when I heard about it right at the beginning, so that was a wonderful memory for me, that it became so central to the look and feel and ethos of the ECC, the broken chain.
You will remember Paul Marie, who used to come to many, many End Conscription Campaign meetings with me over the years as a little baby. And in fact, he was due to come into the world on the 7th of October 1984. Now, I don't know if you remember the 7th of October 1984, but I have every reason to believe it because it was his due date, and on that very day the troops moved into Sebokeng. And that was a turning point, a watershed in South Africa's history. And I remember sitting there waiting for the labour pains to start and hearing this news over the radio and really feeling my heart sink and not knowing what I was doing. And of course, when you're about to have a baby, there really is no turning back.
That started focusing the energy of ECC into a very, very particular campaign, which was a campaign calling for the troops to come out of the townships. And suddenly the whole issue of civil war was on the forefront of the agenda. And ECC, which had started as an organization supporting an end to conscription and saying give people a choice, now took a quite a significant step, in a sense a more militant step, saying troops out of the townships, and the troops shouldn't be playing a role in the townships, because by doing so they were fueling a civil war in this country. And that was the point at which ECC then really took off. And we moved from a point where it was just supported by organizations, and very significant organizations like the Black Sash and the Council of Churches and NewSAS and Women for Peace, to mass members and individuals saying we wanted to be part of this organization.
On the 9th of October, when Paul Francis Zilla Marie arrived into the world, I was delighted that he was healthy and all there, but my heart really sank because, awash with hormones and looking into the future, I could almost see my little boy being dragooned and conscripted into marching into Sebokeng, and I was completely beside myself. So I decided that one of the first things I was going to do was to get out of hospital and join the End Conscription Campaign, which is then...
And similar structures were then established in Port Elizabeth and in Grahamstown and in Pretoria and in Stellenbosch.
I was an activist in the ECC almost from when it started. This was Durban and surrounds, but of course we travelled a lot. We used to visit other centres.
And then I moved to Port Elizabeth and was the founder and chair of the End Conscription Campaign branch in Port Elizabeth.
Don't listen to them, they're wrong. It's clear, we're singing a peaceful song.
And by mid-1985 we called a peace festival. And that was really in many ways the national launch of ECC. It was the first time that ECC members from around the country gathered, and high-profile individuals like Desmond Tutu and Beyers Naudé were there. And we had a national conference in mid-1985, and it was really the point at which ECC took off on a national scale.
As for us in ECC, we reject this military, slash conscription, end the war, change the system we abhor.
But also an approach which really transformed politics in many ways in the country, because politics had tended to be quite heavy and single-minded and single-focused. And it was really from that point again in 1985 when ECC started drawing in people who weren't in the NewSASs or the UDFs or elsewhere, but who came from cultural movement and came from a countercultural movement and came from this media circles. And the creativity that characterized ECC through that period, 1985, 1986, was as a result of this broad spread of people who came into ECC.
We will work for peace and freedom. We will fight with Mandela.
I had objected to the idea of carrying a gun, and the End Conscription Campaign provided a sort of home for an emerging pacifist ideal in me.
I've already done 2 years in the army, and I think that the experience that I had made me very critical, both of the South African system and specifically of the SADF and conscription.
I was involved rather peripherally, but the most involved I was through working for a Just Peace campaign, which had great resonance for me.
I did some unpaid work in the hospital for a while, and then I got pardoned under the amnesty provisions.
No, I think it happened organically. It wasn't a decision saying, well, that's the route we must go. It was a complete reflection of the people who joined the organization. I think what created the space for that was a culture in ECC of complete tolerance and an acknowledgement of a diversity of views.
Through everything that we did and going to hiding several times and all of the camaraderie, we had these very big debates, and I remember the first big debate we had was whether the young progs should be allowed to join the End Conscription.
It was a single issue campaign focusing on one single issue, but you could support that issue from any perspective. You could support it as an anarchist, you could support it as a pacifist, as a Christian, as an atheist, as a just war theorist, as a communist. So in a sense, the space was created for anybody to be involved in the campaign as long as they supported the single issue, which is the opposition to compulsory conscription.
And I found myself in a tiny minority at that stage arguing that they should be allowed. I said, listen, if our purpose is to end conscription, then surely we're trying to convince young people to support our cause, and surely a group of young people who want to join our cause should be welcome rather than pushed away because they don't pass some kind of ideological litmus test. And we had these long and interminable debates.
And I remember one of the objectives was to show that there were alternatives to serving in the military. So what we did in that campaign was we worked in Walmer Township repairing a creche and fixing up the roof, fixing up the floorboards and so on. And I thought this was a pretty profound way to serve one's country, and I was really taken with the idea.
Just through the people who then felt free to join ECC, and who had the skills and the inclination to operate more creatively and operate in the creative sphere and operate in the dramatic sphere and in the concert sphere and all the other spheres, that happened organically. It was part of who ECC were. It wasn't as if it was a group of people making a decision, that's the route to go.
I was previously an activist in the End Conscription Campaign, involved in the culture section. So it's been really nice for me to be involved in this, because this is so much about culture with the exhibitions and the concert and whatnot.
Tonight we have some of the art on show that some of it was made at that time and some of it has been made much more recently. And I think that's a very interesting mix, because it shows to me that the values that we had at that time, those values of activism and trying to change social issues, have persisted.
State pillar.
And when Helen was talking about her visualization of her little boy going out to war in Sebokeng, I thought of Manfred Ziller's very large portraits on the wall, his beautiful pencil drawings of child soldiers.
So as a child, I know I experienced the bombing of our town, and that's the way. That's why maybe I got involved always. In Germany already, I was involved with the peace party after the Second World War finished, and then so on. In the 1950s, I had to go to the army. I became an objector to the army in Germany. And coming to South Africa, I thought, no, I just can't just stand there and doing nothing,
I woke up one morning with a rise in the stew. I thought I saw P.V. Boyder in an unemployment queue. There with a begging boy was Louis Karaki too, but he turned his head and said, my friend, joke it is on you.
I was also in an ECC subcommittee called the Roadshow, the ECC Roadshow. We used to go around and produce little pieces of drama and satire and comedy and songs to try and educate mostly the white youth, but also youth generally, about the issues that we were dealing with.
Then I found myself in the battlefields of Rathbone. Came upon John Foster's clone. He was reading the autobiography of Joe Slovo and singing everybody must get stoned to city John, great guru, man of mystery. How do I overcome my mediocrity? He said, don't ask me, you just switch on USA TV. But it's alright. There's no going back now. It's always dark in the middle of the night. Alright, there's no going back now. It's always dark in the middle of the night.
So I started making posters in Aslan. I made woodcuts. We stick them up in the night on the police stations. So that's where I started to get involved.
I've come here because I actually know quite a few people who were in the End Conscription Campaign. I had nothing to do with the campaign at all. I sort of just watched it happen from the sidelines. And of course I came because there's an art exhibition on of work from the 80s. And I went to art school, so I know quite a bit about art. You know?
I was invited to the End Conscription exhibition, Art for Peace at Baxter. I think I could remember it was 1984.
Political art, cartooning, posters, various forms of graphics. Some of that art can actually engage both the people in power and people who have little power but who identify with some of the issues.
When they saw the Art for Peace exhibition, then they were starting to felt it's a threat. And I can remember they sent people from the army into that exhibition and telling those youngsters, oh, that's the work of the communists. Everything what was against the government was the work of communists.
What's interesting for me about this art that's here is it's so analog, you know. I mean, I just met someone outside and I was talking about their work, and I thought it was a printout, and I forgot that at that time things weren't printed out in huge digital format. So that's actually a pencil work. This is like quite amazing.
Oh, they wrote me a letter, want me to fight as well. But I'm locked in a fighting mood. Oh, there's not that much time. I have to make a decision. So tell me, oh tell me, what must I do? Decide wanna play those silly games. No, I don't wanna play those silly games. Don't wanna run around in the bush, I know how to shoot. But tell me, who is the enemy? Who is the enemy? Who is the enemy?
I'm Chris, and yeah, it's a really good event. I personally didn't want to go to army. I actually got on a yacht in Durban that was meant to go overseas, but we never got further than Cape Town.
It's a tragic and ironical song that has been dedicated to my first boyfriend, Gavin Harvey, who was not a hero, but he died as a kind of unexpected parabat somewhere in Angola.
My name is Sandy Hoffman, and I was involved in the End Conscription Campaign in Port Elizabeth. And in 1986, a whole bunch of us were detained, including who's my now husband over there. I was in prison for 3 months. It was a bit difficult because I had 2 children at the time.
And it was really the point at which ECC took off on a national scale. And it was also then the point that the state then started taking a very significant interest in ECC.
You can take a chance on a Friday night, go out on a jog, try and feel alright, but on the streets you smell the grease of the guns and hot dogs of the Boerewors police.
Then technically I was unable at that point. Then I eventually went to one side, Bloemfontein.
This one's for you. Wherever you might be tonight, sleeping cold, fighting for your country and for me.
I think I got a bit numb because I came from a white middle class background where, you know, you believe in certain rights and so on, certainly rights of privacy and so on, and then we were taken in to this bathroom with the wardress who told me to strip and bend over and show her my backside, which was definitely not part of white middle class upbringing.
Lemon on the border forces and the hot dog stands, blood and tomato sauces in our bridesmaids' land.
Went up to Angola. At that point I was actually quite keen to go because it was just to get out of, you know, Bloemfontein, which was just terrible. Everything was just brown. I mean, everything was brown. Your underpants were brown, everything was brown.
Dickie, I just had to let you go. Dickie, baby, they say I'll have a baby next July. Sometimes I feel quite scared when I think of you. Can you forgive me? 'Cause you know I don't mean to hurt you while you're fighting on the border. Baby, I just didn't know what to do.
And I was detained 3 times as a result of my ECC activity at different stages through 1985 and 1986, and it was really all triggered by that period in which ECC was then taking a much more militant, more high-profile stance.
I had one horrible experience one afternoon. We lived in an area that wasn't fenced and the water was there, and I hadn't seen the children for a while. Then I saw all 3 of them charging down the side of the house through the window, and the telephone rang. And there was a voice saying, "Mrs. Ranseman, we've got your children here in Kuilsrivier." And I tell you, I went absolutely icy for half a second until I remembered I'd just see them go past the window.
I think the prison experience was the most memorable because it was the most difficult, but at the same time I think the most learning experience. I think it was in there that I learned that there are no good people and no bad people, because I realized that I was actually also, by being involved, I'd hurt my boys, and so I was also, by force, I was kind of hurting as much as I was trying to live what I believed was right.
Oh, it all began with just one hot dog stand, but now it's getting simply out of hand. All this fuck and border forces stinking out our land. No, the border forces. No, the border forces. Yeah, the border forces getting on our tits.
And then when I got back, eventually I got a transfer to the Natal Command, which I kind of wangled.
Soldiers carry you slowly on their shoulders, slowly marching. Shots rang out in the still sky. And in my best black dress on that hot afternoon, the sun burning my eyes. Oh,
And then eventually I ended up in a psychiatric ward and got discharged. And that was it.
I'm refusing to do any more military service, and I think things in South Africa at the moment are in a crisis situation, and one needs to actually respond with new and exciting ways.
September 1985, and the date was around about the 16th of September 1985. What had happened was, as part of this campaign calling for the troops to come out of the townships, ECC had a campaign which focused around the late Dr. Ivan Toms and John Freeth, who fasted in the cathedral for 2 weeks in opposition to what the troops were doing. And it was exactly the point that I was detained and taken into Pollsmoor and into solitary confinement. And right through my interrogation, I was told that the campaign had collapsed, that ECC was in disarray, that the fast had been called off because I had no access to the outside world.
That we're hoping people nationally and internationally will fast for 24 days in solidarity with us and really back that whole call, that we call for a just peace, we call for the troops out of the townships, and the very least is that the troops should have a right to choose, that they should have a right to not go into the townships at the moment.
And as a result of a threatened court application, I was released the day before the end of that campaign. And the culmination of that campaign was a meeting in the City Hall in Cape Town. And there was not a march, but a sort of vigil from the cathedral where they'd been fasting through town, right the way through town to the City Hall. And I spoke at that meeting, and Ivan Tom spoke at that meeting, and others spoke at that meeting. And I think there were probably 4,000 or 5,000 people. I don't think there'd ever been a mass meeting with a predominantly white audience, a mass meeting of a political nature as that one. And that was in the history of ECC, that was the biggest meeting that we ever had. The City Hall was absolutely packed to the rafters. And there was a spirit and an energy and a drive and a commitment that I'd seldom seen in any other context.
I'd just like to say at this stage, thank you. I'd just like to say my real thanks to all of you for being here, for your support during this fast, and I really appreciate it. Thank you. Wearing a uniform, whether it be the SAP or the SADF, you are labelled as being part of the system. This is an incontrovertible fact.
We call on young conscripts to refuse to go into our areas. We do not want you there.
Give conscripts the right to choose sides in the civil war. Give conscripts the right to choose not to defend apartheid. Let us use this time to commit ourselves to building and working for peace. Not a neutral commitment that refrains from taking sides, but a sacrificial commitment, as Ivan has spelled out, that takes courage and dedication and that ultimately will bring about a just peace in our land. Thank you.
I tried to be as active as I could, and I want to tell you, belonging to 5 or 6 NGOs at the time, and various campaigns, and having a small baby, makes being Premier and the leader of a party together a very easy task, I can assure you. You guys really trained me up there as eventually the Vice Chair in the Western Cape of the End Conscription Campaign. And I remember when we used to go to our meetings, you remember those meetings? You never used to go straight to a meeting. You used to first go to a meeting place and then be redirected to the meeting. And eventually everyone would find each other in some amazing reunion somewhere, about 2 hours after we thought the meeting would actually start.
But I was banned from 1976, so I never had to go to the army, and I sort of always regarded it as a bit of a fair swap to lose 2 years in the army and 2 years of camps.
And I don't know if you remember Paul Marie at those meetings. Well, he never used to sit still, and he used to mortify me because we tried to raise him properly, like decent parents of that day, and totally demilitarize his upbringing. And of course, he was never allowed to have sight of a gun, let alone own a toy gun, which of course is the first law of parental unintended consequences, because all he wanted was a gun.
And I basically used to write to them and say that I can't be in barracks with more than one person at a time, and I can't leave Cape Town, so do you really want me? And then they would postpone it for another year. So.
Well, I remember we were at B. Cornell's house, and we were having a meeting there eventually, and my baby was there, and he found a hanger, wire hanger in B. Cornell's house somewhere, and he bent it into the shape of a gun, and came round to the ECC meeting and went, and I hardly recovered. I thought I was going to be expelled from the organisation.
After
two press interviews, I think it was Andrew Donaldson who said basically the essence of our time was how to keep out of the army and how to score weed, basically. So we're going to quickly cover that in the next song.
There is a widespread defiance against the military conscription in Eritrea, and I'm one of the groups who are working to that end.
Because I think relevant now, there's a lot of conflict. People are conscripted. I mean, child soldiers are conscripted. People in many countries around the world are forcibly conscripted. There's no choice, like it was in South Africa. And it really should be a choice to go into an army.
If you think about it consciously, then you don't see any reason that you have to be in the army for such a long period of time.
This anniversary points to armies that are used as by the state as a state apparatus to suppress another people in whichever country in the world that is, not mentioning anyone in particular.
In Israel, every guy have to go for 3 years to the army, and every girl for 2 years. When you finish high school, or when you get to 18 years old. Yeah, and if you refuse to go to the army because of political reason, so you got in prison for different terms.
There is no war now. It's only a justification for suppression of fundamental human freedoms.
Cheryl has said, in international terms, there is this thirst for lessons learned from the South African experience.
I'm here to learn an experience from the ECC.
Our group in Israel involved in anti-militarism, and actually a group of people that refused to serve in the Israeli army and got in prison for that.
Every country that has gone through a process of conflict is searching for ways to come to terms with the past.
Anybody from Zimbabwe? Maximum respect. And listen to this one.
I also sit on something called the International Crisis Group and make a lot of learnings from the war we've been through.
Still the law that governs the military service in Eritrea is an open-ended. You have to be you should be with the army until the age of 50. You are governed by it. So it's an open-ended. You don't know when you are going to be mobilized.
Oh baby, I wanna see the mountains now, what's going on? I wanna see the rivers now, what's going on? I wanna hear the bass in the world. 'Cause I'm a country boy. I'm living in a city, my become so.
For some people, yeah, it makes very difficult life with the family or with the friends or with the people around you, like your old friend from high school, that all of them now in the army. But I think it's part of the thing. You can find yourself with other people that do understand you, and it's make the thing more difficult, but you can.
End Conscription objection is punishable by law, by imprisonment or fine or death, and escapees. If you escape from the military service, then your relatives or your family members has to face the punishment.
It's frightening how many wars are still going on, and I think it's frightening sometimes that we as South Africans are not more conscious about those wars and not more actively taking stances in the same way that people took stances about our war.
and nobody knows what's the future holds. You just become an army endlessly.
The chief protagonist was Tom Fox over here. He's come out from New Zealand for this, and these words. There's one little phrase that he wrote. He said, "I wouldn't miss it for the world." This is how I want it to be. You can close your eyes. Close your eyes. You can close your eyes. Don't you know who would miss it for the world? You know I wanna be there. This is what we've been waiting for so long. You know I wanna be there.
Well, I've come all the way from Ireland, where I was a migrant labourer. I was going to come back next month, but I brought forward my return, so yes, it was quite a mission, and I might end up being slightly short on my earnings. But anyway, I wouldn't have missed this for anything.
The organisers have put on just the most amazing exhibitions, films, youth program, and of course speakers.
Don't you know I wouldn't miss it for the world? You know I wanna be there.
Well, I had driven down from Durban, so it ended up taking about 24 hours with all the roadworks and all the wrong turns and stopping off for a brief nap. The memories and the old kind of networks are important, and hopefully something new will come out of it as well.
What's been particularly notable is how many people who had nothing to do with the ECC have come along and made a huge contribution. That's been inspiring.
There's so many wonderful, very committed people who are doing great things here. Some of them may be feeling a bit disaffected from what I gather, and to sort of reconnect those people and to connect up with other organizations and to try and reclaim some of that non-racialism would be a great thing to start here as well.
Well, it wasn't just a peace movement. It's about justice, I'd say. You can't have peace without justice.
By standing up against forced military conscription, conscientious objectors and the End Conscription Campaign demonstrated to their fellow black South Africans that not all whites supported apartheid.
There is an aspect of the kind of non-racialism that we had at the time, or that we certainly had in the struggle at the time. The Western Cape was a very good example of that, where we actually had a very wonderful kind of non-racialism in the organizations that we've lost, and so recapturing some of that is not. I don't have any problem with that. I think it's a good thing.
Look, it's great to celebrate the past, it's great to get nostalgic, it's great that we've kept our bonds, it's great that we've all stayed in South Africa, it's great that we're having the next generation here of the new End Conscription Campaign young people. It's fabulous that we're doing that.
And just remind ourselves of what we were doing then and how that applies to what we're doing now as well.
The discussions here have shown that there's some incredibly important lessons. So I'm going away from this weekend having dredged up a whole lot of stuff.
With this one person can have many noises.
There is a very real middle-age thing about it, that we realizing we didn't change the world. And when you're a student, you kind of hope you can. And that, I think it's kind of cutting us down to size, and for me that's been a really interesting part of being here.
I've gone round and I've spoken to many people who were involved in ECC, and I know many of the people who were involved in ECC, and every single person that I've spoken to is still in their own way and in their own small areas involved in activities, whether it's in philanthropy or in conservation or in schooling or education or in pro bono work or in medical work or whatever they're doing. They are doing things that are contributing to the growth and progress of this country.
I think it's absolutely stunning, and I think it's great for non-racialism, because it's a reminder that young white people were just so immensely brave, and it's incredible that young white people were so brave.
Hey,
Get some support from people inside Israel, like the activists or people that are part of the struggle, and people from outside, like here in South Africa, that appreciate what we're doing and see the similarity between what happened with the End Conscription Campaign in the past and what happened with us now, today. And then we get this support, and it's very, very important.
And I empathize with the youth today, the ones who are wanting to get involved and who find it much more complicated. It's more complicated for all of us. The nuances are very difficult, and there's a lot of disillusionment about where things have gone.
I think it's very important that people know what is going on. They must read and they get involved. Young people must get involved, and whatever you can do as a visual artist, do work in the visual art. In Europe, it's a huge move now, political art. It's coming stronger and stronger. I mean, we have this movement called Attack in Europe. Thousands and thousands of people are joining this movement. They're against this stockbroker, stock market, and against war, against pollution, against anything. I mean, these young people are very much aware of what is going on.
25 years later, it's important to remind ourselves of the role played by End Conscription Campaign as part of the non-racial movement against apartheid, which provided us with the foundations for our glorious rainbow nation.
Everybody, actually, young person, should get involved and do something, with either write, demonstrate, or whatever.
Cool, thank you. Yeah, they won the struggle. We are non-violent means. They said no, and they won the struggle. So it's this an encouragement. It gave me energy, a new energy and hope. And that's what I'm going to tell my friends.
It's also a fitting opportunity to recommit ourselves to the ideals of that rainbow nation and the responsibilities that go with it.
You know, in Eritrea, we say when we give encouragement of those conscientious objectors or those who are in a struggle, like Amadla and Awete in South Africa, we say Ajona. Ajona. It means we are together, we can make it.
Also, dealing with the cause is that certain changes that were supposed to happen still haven't happened.
The life in South Africa is one campaign after another. It's one campaign for democracy after another. And it's fantastic. And it means also looking ahead, and if you're ahead of your times, you're always out of step with the times. So that really is the lesson. It's fantastic to be together with a whole lot of people who are part of making Africa and South Africa the great democracy we know we can be. Good luck to you all. Thank you very, very much. Have a fantastic weekend of fun, and let the battle for democracy continue. God bless you.
What is it that we thought we were going to get, or we hoped we were going to get, that we still haven't got yet? None of us, whether we're black or white. We don't have a properly functioning democratic system. We all deserve something better than what we have. That's what we should go for.
For me, that's a lot of the excitement of this weekend, is seeing that there's still that creative energy, there's still that commitment, and people are still making a difference even now.
If it can galvanize people who have been involved and are still involved, and kind of pull the youth in as well, that would be fantastic.
Big things are expected from South Africa. It remains the beacon of hope for Africa, and just let's push this forward, and we can make it, as we did it already. We can make it.
We are loving it so much.